Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 310 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I could not be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about habits, right? And I know I've talked about habits before, but specifically today, I'm going to talk about habits that have been shown via data, right, to be the habits most and least used by super savers, right? And I think we all, need to be super savers in one way or another in order to reach our financial dreams, right? And so if these individuals who exceed the ability to just build a nest egg and do so at a very, very, high rate and do so very aggressively over time, if they can do these things, right, maybe we should follow in lockstep and do some of the things that make them good at saving money over time. And some of these might surprise you, but I hope that you can learn something and follow along with this discussion. And hopefully you can take some of these habits and implement them in your own life to make yourself a better saver and to make yourself a better financial steward over the long term. So stick around for all that and more in today's episode. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions. And you and I can begin working together, pushing towards your long-term financial goals and ultimately pushing you on towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual watching or listening to this show on a day-to-day basis. Now, there's this assumption that we make. And this assumption that we make is that everybody who does well as far as saving for retirement or investing for their future, they do everything right. Right? We make that assumption. We make this assumption that they don't do anything that wouldn't be advised by a top-ranked financial advisor. And this just is not true, right? It's just not true that's the case. Right? These individuals, they have their own flaws. They have their own niches, and some of them don't do almost anything that a major financial advisor would say, but they know the importance of saving, so they try to get that done, and they may make the income to be able to do so. Right? But we need to understand that there are some good financial habits that super savers are likely to rely on, and then others that appear less important to them, right? Some things that may be good things, but maybe they just don't see them as being super important when it comes to investing for their future, saving for their future, right? So there's a study that's done by Principal Financial Group, PFG, right? And the company defines super savers as workers who put at least $17,550 in their 401k account per year. Now, that is 90% of the contribution maximum of $19,500 per year that you can put into a 401k right now. That was the first part. Or they contribute at least 15% of their pay, right? And the reason that there's that distinction is because just putting a dollar amount on it is not necessarily fair when you have individuals who make different amounts, whereas 15% of somebody's income is quite a bit. Right? 15% of one person's income could be far more than $17,550, but 15% of somebody else's may be far less. Okay, so those are the criterion they use. And the report is based on a survey of about 1,400 individuals aged 19 to age 56 with salaries ranging from under $35,000 to more than $250,000 who meet that qualification. So again, you have individuals over a broad range of incomes. And I think this is important because this tells you that people of all income brackets can do this. They can all be super savers. They can all be effective in saving for their retirement over time. Now, when it comes to financial habits, and we're going to hit every single one of them that they talk about, right? When it comes to financial habits, 85% of super savers said they pay their bills on time, 73% pay their credit cards in full, and 70% do not overdraw on their checking account, right? All three of these habits avoid fees or interest that end up reducing cash available for other uses, right? Now, I'm going to go through this list one by one of all of these different things, all of these habits of super savers, and talk about the percentage that ascribe to these particular habits, to these particular things, and talk about why it's so important. Talk about why a super saver would need to be somebody who does these things, or as we get down the list, why super savers aren't as interested in doing some of the other things that are good financial habits. Okay, so The top one on the list was they pay their bills on time, right? 85% of the super savers said they pay their bills on time. Now, this is important, right? Because if you're going to be a super saver, you're going to be a super investor, you're going to be able to put money away for your future, right? You need money to put away for your future. And the only way you can have that is if you aren't having a bunch of extra fees, a bunch of extra interest, a bunch of extra money that you are having to pay out every single month. You need some margin in your budget, right? And in order to have margin, paying your bills on time is huge, right? And I would guess that among people who aren't super savers, most probably still pay their bills on time, right? That's something that everybody can see as something that is very good. It's a good thing to do. And it's something that, if it's not a financial habit of yours, needs to become one immediately, because it's the most important, obviously, to these individuals who do save a lot of money for their future. Okay, then the second one was pay credit cards in full. All right. Now, this is every single month. This is before you accrue any interest. You need to pay your credit cards off in full. 73% of the super savers said that this was the case, right? The reason that this is so important, again, is because if you do not pay your credit cards in full, you start accruing interest on your credit card balance, right? And credit cards hold some of the highest interest rates out there, right? So if you want to avoid paying any extra interest, then you just pay them in full, right? And these would also be individuals who are not going to max out their credit cards over time, right? If they're paying them in full, then they are using them for the benefits. They're using them for the perks. They're not using them as a second bank account. They're not using them as a, something that they can fall back on as an emergency fund. That's not what they're using them for. They're using them as if it's their debit card, as if it's their bank account. And then, over time, they just pay them off with their checking account every single month, and everything's good, and they move on, right? And they don't accrue interest. They don't accrue any extra fees, right? And they don't end up paying more than they have to, and they don't let the credit card companies win, right? That's something that a super saver also does. Then, the third thing is they do not overdraw on checking account. 70% of them, right? 70% of them do not overdraw on the checking account. And this is really interesting. I thought this might be higher. And I also thought that pay bills on time might be more in the 90% range, but nonetheless, right? Don't overdraw on the checking account. To think that 30% of super savers still overdraw on their checking account at some point is a bit baffling. It's a bit confusing, but nonetheless, this is the third most important thing that they put up there. You don't need to overdraw on your checking account, right? Interest that is associated, the fees associated with overdrawing on your checking account is just not worth it, right? All three of these top things, right, as the article said here a moment ago, is that they are habits that avoid fees or interest that end up reducing cash available for other uses. So ultimately, these super savers, they want to make sure that they can keep all of their cash, which is a great first step, right? If you can keep all of your cash in your pocket, then that's going to help you to be able to put money away for your future. Because if you don't have money, you can't put money away. That's my big thing on paying off debt, and we'll get to that here shortly. But that's my big thing on paying off debt, right? If you don't have debt, then you don't owe on those debts. So you have money to spend, you have money to give, you have money to save or invest, right? All those things would be true. But pay bills on time, pay credit cards in full, don't overdraw on the checking account. Those are the top three. The number four thing, which is also at 70%, it must have fallen, percentage-wise just below don't overdraw on checking account, is double-digit percentage of their pay goes into their retirement, right? So this means, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Now, this is not surprising because you see the parameters that were put on this study, right? One of the parameters was they contribute at least 15% of their pay, right? So many of them probably got into this study because of that. They got into the survey because of that. But those who don't put double-digit percentage of their pay, they still put up to $17,550 away, right? So that's saying that much is not 15% of their pay, which means that all of those individuals make in excess or maybe well in excess of $100,000 a year. Okay, so that may be the people who don't ascribe to this may just be the individuals who make a lot of money every single year as far as income goes, and they might not be as worried about putting away tons and tons and tons in retirement. But As a good rule, putting away double digits is good. 15% is a great rule to have. That's why that's a part of my financial action plan, and that's why that's one of the parameters that they put here. But this number would be higher if it wasn't for the fact that one of the parameters was the $17,550 in contributions. And again, that's contributions just to a 401k. There's no telling what their other contributions may be over the course of a year, and then they still might not hit 15% of their pay, right? Or double digits even of their pay. So that's a lot of money, right? A lot of money that these individuals can be making. But 70% of them do put away double-digit percentage of their pay, and that's just not surprising. It's not surprising that people who end up with a lot and have really good nest eggs are being very intentional about putting money away for their future. Not surprising, okay? Then, their net worth grows every year. 62% of these super savers said that their net worth grows every year. Now, why would this be surprising at all? Well, for most people who are in the market, you're in the market may go down one year. You may have a lower net worth the next year than you did the year before, or, you may take out debt or whatever, right? But these individuals who are super savers, they likely have less debt, right? They have less in the way of liabilities, and they're constantly putting money away for their future. And if you're constantly putting money away for your future, then you're constantly adding on to the stack. You're constantly growing that stack of money that you will actually have to grow for you over a long period of time. So even if the market's going down, you're still buying, you're still adding to that stack. And they're doing so in large numbers because they are these super savers. They are these people who are putting away not just small amounts of money, they're putting away large amounts of money for their future. So it's no surprise their net worth would grow every single year. Again, 62% of these individuals say that their net worth does grow every single year. Then 61% don't feel guilty for an occasional splurge, okay? And this is something that you find a lot among individuals who actually have money, is that they don't feel so bad about spending it, right? They understand that one of the uses of money is to spend money. Now, that's not to say that the primary use of money is to spend money. That's not to say that use is any more important than the other uses of saving or giving, but it's to say that they don't feel so bad about splurging and spending a little bit of money on something every now and then. They just don't feel bad, right? And it's also not surprising that there are still 39% of these super savers who do feel bad. Because I'm going to tell you this, just in my own life, right? There are things that I feel perfectly okay with when it comes to an occasional splurge, right? But I still have this tightwad in me. I still have this, very conservative financial individual within me that says, don't spend money on that. That's dumb. Or don't, splurge on this. How often are you really going to use it? I try to logic myself out of it. Whereas sometimes it's not about logic. Sometimes it's about the fact that you do need to spend money. And especially if you have money, you do need to spend money. And this is something you're not going to hear from a lot of people talking about financial topics day in, day out, right? But you do need to spend money. Okay, because spending money is a part of the uses of money. It's one of the things that you can do. And if you're not spending money, then you're going to just build up really big nest eggs for yourself. You're probably going to be really selfish with how you use your money. Now, you may give, right? But you're not going to enjoy your money in the same way that you would if you just spent some of it. I'm not saying you have to spend a lot, and I'm not saying you should spend a lot. I'm just saying you need to spend money in some proportion over time. So you shouldn't feel guilty about an occasional splurge, but it's no surprise that 39% still do in some way, shape, or form. But 61% do not because they actually have money. Then 61% are unconcerned with keeping up with the Joneses. Again, this is something that it's difficult, and it's not surprising that 39% say, hey, it's still tough because we want to keep up with other people, right? Because most people do want to keep up with others, right? They want to look around them and go, if they have this nice of car, then I need this nice of car. Or if they have this nice of house, I need this nice of house, which is all a lie. Keeping up with the Joneses is a big lie. And it's, been perpetuated to us. It speaks to our human nature to one, want to be, competitive, two, want to, have more than somebody else, then it's like, being jealous, being envious, all these things, right? All these deadly sins that we have within us, right? That's what comes out of that. It's keeping up with the Joneses, right? But 61% of these super savers, they're unconcerned because, right, they know they're doing the right thing. They're not concerned about what other people are doing, right? Because if they were normal and doing what everybody else was doing, then they wouldn't be where they are, right? So they have this mindset of like, okay, I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm not concerned with what other people are doing because I know that their financial habits are not financial habits that are going to get me to long-term financial freedom. But these habits that I have of not keeping up with the Joneses, not worrying about what other people do, that'll get me there, okay? So still a majority are unconcerned with keeping up with the Joneses, okay? Then 56% of these super savers don't lose sleep over their finances, okay? So this is a bit interesting to me because I would think that there would be a much smaller percentage that do lose sleep over their finances. I wonder why they're losing sleep over their finances. Are they saving so much that it's putting themselves into a financial bind? Do they not make a lot of money and they're worried about making more money? Or so? I don't know why this would only be 56% don't lose sleep. But it's still a majority that don't lose sleep, and they don't lose sleep because they are implementing correct habits. They're implementing correct things in their financial life. They're doing the right things. They're saving aggressively, and they know they have money, right? If you're a super saver, you know you have money, right? And if you know you have money in your pocket or in your bank account or in your investment account that you can access if you absolutely have to, that helps you to sleep a little better at night if something were to happen in your life, okay? So not losing sleep over finances, still a majority there. 54%, they feel confident in their financial future. Okay, now, again, seems a little low, but there could be many reasons why this number is low, but still a majority feel confident about their financial future, right? Because it takes this feeling of confidence. It takes some confidence and some understanding of the fact that it's going to get you to a good financial future to be willing to be a super saver, to be willing to invest large amounts of your income, to be willing to put money away and not touch it for long periods of time, right? I feel confident in my financial future, right? But I'm not, trying to throw myself in the study or anything, but I'm just saying the reason I feel confident is because I know I'm putting the right things in place. There's something about having a good mindset, having a good plan, understanding what you're going to do in the future, that makes you feel confident about it, right? If you've worked through it and you actually understand it, you can feel more confident, right? It's the same thing about how I talk about with investing, know what you own, right? You can feel more confident with your investments when you actually know what you own. You actually know what you have in your investment account. In the same way, you can feel confident about your financial future if you know what you're doing and you have good, historically proven steps that you're taking, okay? So majority of these super savers feel confident in their financial future. 53% feel in control of their finances. That kind of goes right along with feeling confident in their financial future, right? Because if you're a super saver, that means you're very hands-on. You're very active. You're actually doing something in your financial life. You're actually putting your hands on your money and moving it to where it needs to be moved to and doing the proper things. And so you are in control, right? For the most part. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't exogenous events that can occur that can, knock your financial situation out of whack. But it is to say that we have a better feeling of control with our money, again, when we're actually working a plan that is proven historically and we're actually putting our hands on our money, we're paying attention. Just don't fall asleep at the wheel and you'll feel a lot more in control, right? You feel a lot more in control of your car when you're wide awake and driving your car well, right? But if you're starting to get sleepy, the control factor, it goes haywire because you're not all the way in control anymore, okay? Then 50%, only half, say that they are happy with their financial situation. And this is interesting to me. I wonder what this means, right? Does this mean that, obviously this would, the inference would be that 50% are unhappy, right? If 50% are happy, then 50% are unhappy. I wonder if the unhappy ones are unhappy with the fact that they aren't where they need to be yet, or if they look at their financial life and go, this is just not what makes me happy. Because I don't think money should be what makes you happy, right? But if you can look at your financial situation and go, I am pleased with what I'm doing, right? That's probably what they mean here. But again, I think if you had the total population talking about happy with their financial situation, it'd be far lower than 50%. So these individuals are a little above average there probably, right? Then everything else here, right, is going to be below 50% said to the affirmative. They said, yes, right, this is me, okay? So these are things that they don't do very much. They don't do very often, or they don't think about very often, okay? So don't use credit cards out of necessity, right? So this is a weird thing because it says don't and then asks you this question. But only 49% don't use credit cards out of necessity. Now, this is surprising, right? This is surprising because I said earlier, right, that 73% pay their credit cards off in full, right? And now we're saying that only 49% don't use credit cards out of necessity, right? So this means that of the other people who do, 51% use credit cards out of necessity. That's a bit extreme for these super savers, right? I'm quite surprised that that is the case. But it shows that they still have money to pay things off, but maybe they're just not willing to do so at such a high rate. So that brings me back to that top number of 73% pay credit cards off in full. That 27% that don't probably comes from the fact that they are using credit cards out of necessity, because that's not a good financial habit, right? But these individuals are still super savers. So anyway, then 47%, only 47% say they are natural savers. Now, this is not surprising to me, but it may be surprising to you that a lot of people who are really good savers, the majority here, are not naturals, right? They don't feel like they are naturally good at saving money, right? You would think that, naturals are going to do it better. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's just the case of people knowing what's best for them, knowing what's going to benefit them most in their financial lives or in their lives, whatever habit it may be, right? And they take that on. For instance, there are people who don't naturally, want to get in shape, right? Or they don't naturally have, the physique of somebody else, right? But they may go to the gym and get themselves in good shape anyway because they know that's what's best for them. So I kind of think of it in that way. So not even a majority of these people are natural savers. Then, and I know since I preach to you a financial plan all the time, you're going to be like, haha, Dylan told you, but we'll talk about it. Only 44% of these super savers have a financial plan. This is frustrating, right? That the minority have a financial plan relative to the majority, but this doesn't mean that a financial plan is not useful, right? Financial plans are very, very useful. Now, this may not mean that they never had one, right? This may mean that they had one at one point and then they don't follow one anymore, or they just do things, that seem to be advisable, but they don't have a written plan or some type of specific plan, which if it works for you, whatever, right? But as we can see, there are other bad habits that these individuals are taking on, but they are still really, really good savers. So having a financial plan, I think, is still very important, but you need to make sure that, even if you don't have a plan, you know what you're doing, you understand where you're going, and having a plan just helps you to look into the future. It helps you to know where you're going next. It helps you to make very strict and concise movements, moving in a straight line and not just being all over the place. So I think a financial plan is still useful, but only 44% of these super savers had one. Then 31% spend time monthly learning about finances. So either they've learned in the past and they don't learn anymore, or they just don't want to learn at all and they're just like, I'm just going to save. I think you should be spending time learning about your finances. Even I, who, I'm getting a PhD in finance, right? Even I spend time to learn about finances, but some people just not as interested and they just want to implement this good habit of saving. All fine by me if it works for you, okay? Then 29% spend time monthly learning about investments. Along the same lines, look, especially if you're like investing in index funds or low cost mutual funds or something like that, or ETFs, I'm not mad at you if you're not spending a lot of time learning about investments because maybe you don't have the bandwidth to do so. You're not that interested. You just want your money to grow. You want to do the right things, but you don't necessarily want to learn too much about it. That's perfectly fine. But I think anybody who's going to purchase anything, any type of individual stock, anything outside of an index fund or some, just really boilerplate mutual fund, needs to learn about investments. Now, maybe not monthly, but needs to make sure that they have their ear to the ground and understand what they're invested in. Again, know what you own, all right? Then 29% of these individuals say that people ask their opinion about finances. Now, this doesn't sound like a lot, okay? But a lot of people don't get asked about finances anyway because, it's this big taboo thing that people are like, okay, we're not going to talk about this with other people. So I don't put a lot of weight on that number. I would say that 29% might actually be a good number. It might actually be a fair number of individuals who get asked about their finances. But nonetheless, who knows? Then 27% say that they have a debt payoff strategy. And this one just hits me right in the heart, because I'm like, only 27% of these super savers have any type of strategy to pay off their debt. Now, this may mean some things. This may mean that these individuals don't have debt. This may mean that they're just, going all out at just, paying their debts down, and they're not using a specific strategy or plan. But what I suspect that it means is that a lot of these individuals are keeping debt around and still saving, which is disappointing, because we know that can be a strain on your cash flow and a strain on your ability to invest and save over a long period of time. So having a good debt payoff strategy like the debt snowball is something that's very useful. That's why I teach it. That's why I tell you to do it. But only 27% of super savers actually do that. And then probably the one that hurts me the most, right, is this final one. And it says that only 21% of these super savers have a budget that they follow each month. Meaning that most of these super savers are not budgeting, right? So how do they know how much money they have? How do they know how much money they have left over? How do they know how much money they're spending? I don't know, right? I don't know. But what all of this does tell me, it tells me that just because you're a super saver doesn't mean you're a financial genius. And just because you're a super saver does not mean that you're doing things so abnormally better than anybody else, right? A lot of these people are relatively normal, but that gives me some hope. It gives you some hope for many of you out there who don't think that saving and investing is possible, because there's a lot of normal people doing very normal, maybe bad habit financial things that are still super savers that are working towards investing for their future. So do I think that they could change some things? Of course. Do I think that they should do some things better? Of course. Should they budget? Yes. Should they have a debt payoff strategy? Yes. Should they learn about investments? Yes. Should they have a financial plan? Yes. Right? Should they use credit cards out of necessity? Absolutely not. Right? But a majority of them are doing all of those things. Right? So ultimately, it's it's a matter of who's going to be successful, and it may be the fact that being a super saver is their way of saying, this is my financial prowess. This is all I know, so this is all I'm going to do. And I understand that, right? But we need to learn, we need to evolve, we need to get better, and we need to put all these things together. We don't need to have some mutually exclusive ideas, because these ideas are not mutually exclusive. All these things work together, and they all impact your cash flow. Debt impacts your cash flow. Interest and fees on your bank accounts and your credit cards, those are going to impact your cash flow. Having an emergency fund or not is going to impact your cash flow. Knowing where your spending is occurring is going to impact your cash flow. So all these things are very, very important. But some of them they're doing and some of them they aren't, right? So a penny saved is a penny earned, and has never been truer, especially when it's saved on ancillary fees that aren't necessary if you're just careful. So this is the thought process of these individuals who are super savers, right? Meanwhile, many of the super savers also appear to be going at it alone. Fewer than half say they have a financial plan, right? As far as the less used habits go, 21% again say that they follow a budget every month, and 23% say that they have a debt payoff strategy. Less than a third spend time every month learning about finances and investments. Nevertheless, right, this shouldn't be a deterrent to others to practice these good habits. Like I said, we need to be practicing these good habits. It should not be a deterrent. Just because these people are super savers and they're not practicing some of these good habits, that does not mean that you should not practice some of these good habits, because I'll tell you this, they could be much better super savers if they just practice some of these good things, right? If you're just starting out in your savings journey, learning to budget, getting advice on your finances, building strategies, it's a great place to begin. Having a plan, knowing what you're doing, tracking your spending, all those things are very good. Right? The super savers in this survey are generally those who have already taken action and have a good sense of their financial situations, including prioritizing the minimization of debt, right? So this kind of speaks to a question that I had about this, is just saying these are individuals who they've kind of already worked through this situation. They kind of know what they're doing when it comes to their finances and their debt, and they're not so worried about having some strict plan. But ultimately, especially if you're just getting started, right? Listen to the good habits of the super savers and learn that even if, they don't do all the things that they should, if they were, they could be doing so much better, right? There's always room for improvement, even among the super savers among us, right? So if you want to become a super saver, Implement some of these things. If you want to even get to a point where you are saving and investing large portions of your income at all, right? Implement some of these things. And then some of them we need to implement even though you don't have these super savers who are saying that that's at the top of their priority list. Because who's to say that some of these little things like having a plan, having debt payoff strategy, not using credit cards out of necessity, who's to say that those things couldn't change somebody's financial life in a positive way? I think they absolutely could. So hopefully this helps you, and it helps you to be motivated towards some good financial habits and good financial actions that will help you along in your financial life. So thanks for watching this video. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, be sure to subscribe and leave me a review on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a financial plan and keep you accountable to that plan over the long term, then I can do that. Just DM me on any of the major social media sites and tell me that you are interested in financial coaching sessions, and you and I can start pushing towards your financial goals and ultimately pushing towards long-term financial freedom, which is what I hope for every single individual watching or listening to the show on a day-to-day basis. So tune in Monday as I continue talking about personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.